dancing? So before I get to yakking, as we stand here in the shadow of Minute Maid Park, how about them Strohs? Okay, so I was a couple of weeks into my freshman year at the University of Miami, and I fell off my bike. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. But when I woke up the next morning with really bad back pain, I kind of just popped a handful of Advil and went to my music theory class. That was January 2009, and after that, everything changed. It could take me all night to tell you all the details, but we've got a walk to get to, so let me try to summarize the best I can. So, in Miami, excruciating pain that landed me in the ER, tons of tests, lots and lots of drugs, in and out of consciousness, my family flying in from all over, and then a diagnosis of ALL, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and a rather quick end to the second semester of my freshman year of college. So, one red-eye flight back here to Houston, immediately at MD Anderson for induction chemotherapy, remission after the first phase. The treatment caused deterioration in both my femurs and more awful pain in my hips, but lots of love from my parents and my 3 sisters, and then back to Miami, back to friends, and back to the music engineering courses that I had grown to love. But halfway through the fall semester of my second year, the pain in my hips was so bad that I was struggling just to get around campus. So I dropped out again. The following spring, I had bilateral hip surgery, something usually done to someone 60 years older than I was. But I didn't care. So I decided to stay home to continue my schooling, kind of regroup. And after being in remission for 3 years, I headed to Belmont University in Nashville to finish my degree. And then, similar timeline, about halfway through the following spring semester, another hospital ER, shingles, relapse of cancer. Now, at that point, I was told that I needed a bone marrow transplant, and as luck would have it, my sister was a perfect match. I was in the hospital for Christmas, 2013, and the procedure went pretty well until I went into near total liver and kidney failure as a result of a blood clot from the chemotherapy used to prepare my body for transplant. So yeah, this was getting kind of ridiculous. But I fought my way back, and I got back to Belmont for the fall semester, and then, again, around Christmas, 2014, it reared its ugly head again. Headaches, distorted vision, more of that awful pain. Back to the hospital. I was told that I had cancerous lesions of bone throughout my skull, which is pretty rare for ALL. It started to manifest itself also as tumors throughout my body. Guys, seriously? So we were running out of options at this point. More chemo would do even more damage, or so my doctors thought. And a second transplant would be even more risky, especially after the liver failure from the first go-round. So we kind of took to the internet and looking for clinical trials for people in my condition. And as luck would have it, I found one in Kansas City, whereas it just would have it, my parents both grew up. And I spent most of my summers, spring breaks, and things like that at my grandparents' and my godparents' place. And so we went to Kansas City. After a short time there and the workup, I donated white cells to myself, which were then whisked off to a lab and engineered to be super killer CD19 T cells. The procedure was okay and successful. And you know what? Yeah, it wasn't without its difficulties, but it worked. And I'm still here. And that's what really counts. And about 3 months later, I was back in school full time. And while my story seems to be filled with so many horrible things that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, there were some wonderful things too. Like when I got to go home at the end of my transplant from the hospital, just in time to watch the Super Bowl and sit with my dog, Traveler. And just to sit with him and watch a game that, to be honest, I couldn't tell you who was playing because I couldn't care less about that in general. But just going home to that was amazing. And the outpouring of love and support that I got from friends, my sisters, my parents, I was never alone through this whole ordeal. And when I started college, I thought that a career in music was what I envisioned for myself, and I still play. I still consider myself a musician, but because of what I've been through, I now envision a different path for myself. My drug trial, the drug that saved my life, was approved by the FDA just a few months ago, and kind of in light of that, I've decided to go to law school so I can become a legal advocate for patients. And advocate for research for better treatments, in addition to, above all else, comprehensive policy, healthcare policy that benefits patients and survivors. But having cancer introduced me to LLS in Light the Night. We got financial assistance from LLS, invaluable information, and people to talk to who knew exactly what I was going through and what would lie ahead when so much was unknown. And above all else, the donations, I don't know if y'all realize, but for those of you that maybe just started getting involved with this last year, or those of you that have been doing this for years, y'all have made headlines. I mean, take it from wherever you prefer to get your news from. But the research that LLS supports and this FDA approval, the first living drug as it's being described, is all because of y'all. So you being here and your support has made all that possible. Myself and my family, we will be forever grateful for all that LLS has done. And that is exactly why we have been raising money since 2009 when I was diagnosed. So, so much has happened in my life since I fell off my bike in Miami all those years ago. I mean, it's been almost 10 years. It's kind of crazy to think about. I'm a different person now with, no doubt about it, a completely different outlook on life. And you'll never hear me say that I'm glad that I got leukemia. But I am glad that it made me the person that I am today. So thank you. Thank you for lighting the night with me, your friends, your family, whoever you're here to support, for so many people like me. Thank you.